up here. Cool. All right, well, thank you, Nick, for that great introduction, and thank you guys for being here. Going through the snow, must be all the true Idahoans made it this morning, right? Yeah. That's right. So I think a great way to kick off the day is talk about what innovation really is. And I get that question quite a bit. How do we come up with new ideas? How do you execute on innovative ideas? And to a lot of people, it's this kind of scary thing that seems very mysterious. It seems like it just comes out of nowhere. It becomes some kind of eureka moment that people just, only geniuses can figure out. But the truth is, it's just a lot of work with the right team. And so I want to talk a little bit about my entrepreneurial journey through the new startup that I've created with my co-founder, Preston Lewis, and our team. And we'll get started right now. So first of all, quick introduction, although that was a great one already. This is my family, my wife Nellie, my 3 kids, as well as my dog Brownie, who loves Boise State. Anybody likes U of I? There's actually 2 doors. How nice is that? Yeah. And follow the people with the yellow shirts. Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm a private pilot on the side. I got my license about 15 years ago. I fly Pilatus PC-12 pretty much every weekend for personal or business, as well as for a lot of fun charity events, like picking up dogs from kill shelters, taking them to no-kill shelters, doing angel flights, things like that. I'm trying to teach my son right now. I'm also, to the amusement of my friends, a competitive ballroom dancer, which is not a good one, but I did win an award because we were the only ones who won the division, so competitive award-winning ballroom dancer. And I love reading quite a bit. So my love of fitness started when I was little. You know, a lot of people get into music or they get into technology back then or into sports. I thought, I'm going to get in great shape, I'm going to get buff, I'm going to get ripped, I'm going to get girls, then I'll be good at sports. And that's really what I fell in love with from an early age and throughout high school. April 13th, 1999. You guys ever heard of this thing? The internet. I realized right then that this was a world-changing technology. It's funny because back then, people didn't really think of it this way, right? So this actually in high school, a little bit before April 13th, 1999. Then, you know, in high school, creating websites, learning about this technology, and I started just creating small little businesses online and trying to convince people that the internet was actually going to be a big deal. And it was funny how many people back then used to not believe it. And as he mentioned, it started a company called bodybuilding.com that became the world's most visited fitness website. 800 employees. We had locations all around the world, over 500 million, or almost 500 million in annual revenue. And sold that in 2015 to Liberty Media. And I tried to take a break. You know, I said, hey, I finally, after 17 years, will get a chance to take a little bit of a rest and do some long-term travel and some other things. And this is a picture from Thailand, and it was really fun. But honestly, it was one of the most depressing times in my life. Like, I didn't have that purpose and that what I could wake up for every single day. And you know, it sounds great today, especially on a day of snowing like this. Wouldn't it have been great just to sleep in? And it was great. And I used to laugh at my friends that had to go to work, you know. But it was literally the worst time of my life because I didn't have something that was driving me and that positive stress that takes you and improves you and just seeing other people do things. Science of positive psychology shows that just focusing on pleasure, short-term pleasure, doesn't bring true happiness. You've got to be working on something that gives you a bigger purpose, that brings you happiness because you're helping people while creating something new. So I said, okay, I want to get back into the startup game. You know that when your company has 800 employees, you're not a startup obviously anymore, and it's a whole different type of thing. You're in a lot of finance meetings. You don't get to do a lot of the fun technology. So I said, let's get back into it. So for me, it was, I wanted to find a place that I had some type of value that I could bring. So to me, that was startup that's fitness plus new technology plus a scalable business opportunity. Didn't want to create just some little minor app or something like that. I wanted something that could become something really big, a moonshot. And that's when virtual reality started coming out. You know, I've been hearing about virtual reality for a while. And it's this new technology, this immersive computing, this new major platform that is going to change the world in ways that we can't even describe. And I realized that there could be a business opportunity here. Because that's where usually innovation comes from, is the big companies are not working on the new technologies because they're protecting their current businesses. So that's where startups can win. That's where small companies, individuals, small teams, even in Boise, Idaho, can take on the big boys. And so when virtual reality came out, I realized this could be something that we could put together with fitness, do something really exciting. This is Palmer Luckey when he was 17. He created the Oculus Rift, and he did a Kickstarter 2012, and became very popular for creating one of the first HMDs. And then a few years later, he sold it for over $2 billion to Facebook. And that's when everybody kind of woke up and said, this is going to be a big deal. So what does VR bring to the table? That's the first question to ask when you're looking at the new technologies. No matter what technology you're looking at, AI, drones, cryptocurrencies, what's something new that this brings to the table? Because using a VR headset to read articles is not some new value that's going to make it better and different. So looking into those things. So for VR, one of the first things is that full immersion. This is one of my favorite little VR fails. He forgets the pool table's not actually there. And that happens all the time. People forget. They set things on tables that are not actually there, lean against walls that aren't actually there, and fall over quite a bit, which is pretty funny, but it makes you kind of realize that. Your brain forgets that you're not actually where you're at when it comes to VR. It also brings 3D movement and tracking. This is an app called Tilt Brush where you can actually draw inside the air, and we have people try it out, and they kind of get excited about it because it's all these cool little brushes. But then I'm like, walk around it. This is a 3D application. You can move around the sculptures and the things that you're creating. And that's something brand new to the world. Instant time and location travel. This is Google Earth VR. So you can actually visit any place on Earth using Google Earth VR, and it is a mind-blowing type of application. It really is something that you just have to see to understand. You can really use the street view and go anywhere. So you can go anywhere when it comes to VR, no matter where you're at. Spatial awareness and scale. Being able to see how something actually looks, how tall it is, how big it is. Architects use it to be able to make change orders before they actually build what they're out there building. A lot of other things that it can be used for: recording places and events you can go back to, reducing anxiety and improving mental health, accessibility for people that can't physically get to certain places or events, social meetups, bringing families and groups together with facial expressions, hand gestures, better remote workplaces, real-world entertainment in VR arcades, amusement parks, other attractions, and safer dating, which could be a fun one. I encourage everybody to try out the latest VR headsets if you haven't yet. You'll see there's a lot of great, exciting things. These are the companies that are currently working in the AR and VR space, including Black Box is mentioned on there in the health and fitness, but you can see this is not just gaming companies, it's not just Microsoft. Every industry has a lot of money going into creating amazing AR and VR type of companies, and it's still very wide open. So then the question is how to combine VR with fitness. So that's where I want to go, because that's where my credibility is, my knowledge, the customer set. I've learned so much about that. And I don't want to compete against Microsoft. I don't want to compete against Google, because they obviously have a few extra resources. So they seem to ignore fitness. How can I take VR and put it together in this niche that could be very popular? And it was a good question. I had no idea. A lot of people think when you start a business, the entrepreneur has a genius idea. They already know what to do. They just got to execute on it. And everybody said they wish they would have thought of that. When we started this, we had no idea how we were going to do it. So that's when Preston Lewis and I got together, went and got an office. I said, if I'm going to do this, I can't do it from home because I would just be lazy all the time. So I was getting myself out of that environment where I can't be productive and go to an office where I can do it. Buying all the different devices, researching the technology, understanding how they work, digging into the details, bringing them home. My kids are totally in love with VR, and which I learned a lot more by watching them, by seeing what they're doing. Reading all the things, reading all the books that I could possibly find about VR, reading all the subreddits on Reddit, listening to all the podcasts. Like, there's no shortcut to learning a new technology or a new industry than going in and digging into it deeply. Going to conferences like this, going out there and talking to people, learning what everybody out there is doing, meeting the local VR leaders. Who are the people that are doing things here in your industry that you can meet and learn from? And then figuring out what's the real world problem that this solves. So if you're going to create a new business, it's not to make money. It's not to just get rich. I have a lot of friends that come to me. They wish they had an airplane, and they're like, hey, how can I get rich? What can I do? And they want the shortcut. The truth is, you got to find a new value, something that you can provide for customers that they need. So what's the real world problem? So we started looking into it, and of course, fitness is difficult. Most people that start their fitness programs don't stick to them. And at bodybuilding.com, our biggest competitor by far was the couch. We would lose customers because they stopped working out. And so we spent a lot of time researching that, figuring out why is it that people stop. Obviously, we know that working out is boring. We know that you have to sacrifice a lot of time to do it. You don't get fast results. It feels like a horrible thing. Even the best bodybuilders and fitness models in the world hate working out on most days, even though they won't tell you that online. So society is fatter and unhealthier than ever. This is how resolutions go. Most people that started their fitness resolution in January have already quit. So this is a major societal problem. So then how can this new technology solve them? So we started thinking up ideas, fully gamifying fitness programs. So it's not on this flat screen or device. You could do it inside VR. Gamification is what helps people become addicted to things and want to achieve these goals. Deliver personalized guidance with immediate feedback. Teach and monitor exercise form. Immerse the user in an exciting world that distracts from the boredom of exercise. Reducing pain perception because you're not focused just on how your legs feel on the treadmill. Reducing time perception because you're in flow. Have you ever played a video game only going to play until midnight and then you check and it's 3 in the morning? Like that's how video games can change the way you think about time. Creating social fitness experiences that don't depend on location, be able to go to these classes in other places. So those are some high-level ideas. So we started saying, all right, let's look at potential ideas to use that. Idea, virtual personal trainer. What if you can have a personal trainer with you right where you're at, no matter where you go, right? Seems like a pretty obvious idea. Put the headset on, there's your trainer. So the pros, it's easy to create, easy to understand, it's software only, can scale quickly through app stores. But the cons is limited value. It's really taking the old model and just putting it inside VR. Easy to copy, hard to create a competitive moat. So also I didn't want to just create something new that was going to be copied within days. Some other company could create this, there would be 50 virtual trainer apps out there, and there already are starting to become some. And you can't create a sustainable business if you don't have a competitive moat. So we said that's probably not going to work. Then we said, what about like a home cardio game? So this is actually a game called Beat Saber, which I actually played this morning. It's what I do for cardio every single day. There weren't any of these out there a few years ago, but it's so much fun that you get immersed in this crazy world. You have these little lightsabers and you're like playing all these different songs and like slicing through these blocks. And it is unbelievably addictive to the point where if I'm late for work, it's because I did one more song. And it gets my heart rate up to 80 to 90% of my max heart rate, which was higher than tennis when I tracked it. So it's a very, very powerful thing. So the pros of doing a home cardio game, easy to create, no equipment needed, software only again, can scale quickly through app stores. Cons, limited value again, it's just cardio, no resistance training, and easy to copy. So like I said, when we started thinking about this, there weren't any of these. Now there's dozens of great like boxing games and rhythm-based games like this, which is great, and they've done well, but how can they do long term? So obviously you can do a treadmill cardio game, sell to gyms or partners with the equipment manufacturer, relatively easy to create, large target of end users, so be on the treadmill, have a headset on, you're walking or running through some type of environment. Cons, once again, limited value, no resistance training. It's kind of gimmicky. I've done these a few times. This is one called Blue Goji that has come out, and Nordic Track just released one actually recently. And it is fun the first time, but it's not fun really long term. So we decided we wanted to make sure that we included the best of the metaverse idea of VR, the true immersive idea of VR from Ready Player One, with resistance training, the value of resistance training for your fitness life. High intensity interval training for short bursts of cardio that you can get much better results and do it much shorter amount of time, with the exciting value of esports. Esports, another amazing technology and innovation that's taking over and selling out stadiums. This is a stadium sold out of people watching people play video games, and Twitch being bought for billions of dollars by Amazon. It is a huge market and growing. So of course, first goal, build the initial team. So we built a team of rock stars and we keep adding to them, mostly filling in the areas where we're not strong, Preston and I. You know, so you can't do everything. Don't hire people that are like you. Try to hire people that are strong where you're weak and fill in that team. So that was the initial goal. Define our mission, core beliefs, and goals. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? So we spent quite a bit of time in the beginning defining those things. So our purpose is we help our customers transform their lives through addictive fitness experiences that harness the power of immersive technologies. So we've drawn a line in the sand. We're going to be a fitness company. We're going to build addictive experiences that make you come back and adhere to your program. And we're going to use immersive technologies like VR and AR. So now we have to start prototyping. How is this going to work? So we first of all just started using imagination. So imagination, this is Preston laying on the ground as we were having this kind of fun brainstorm about you could be on the ground and pushing things up, and what are you going to do, and how's it going to work? Just totally brainstorming with really no idea of what the end result was going to be. So we started saying, let's hook a controller to a dumbbell. And so we just took an HTC Vive controller. That way we can see it inside VR. Hooked it to a dumbbell and just started thinking about what does that feel like. And we started to realize dumbbells are difficult because you can't see them in VR. You can have a whole bunch of tracked ones. You can't change the weight easily, and you could drop them and hurt yourself. So we said dumbbells probably aren't going to work. So we started playing around with the different machines that were out there. And we decided to start building an electronic resistance system. So this was a benchtop prototype of one of the first servo motor-based electronic resistance systems. And we started just saying, how does it feel? Let's just put together the cheapest possible prototype we can that we can play with, see how it feels compared to a normal cable machine. How can we hook it into the Unity game engine and send commands to it so we can actually change the weight? Like, is that possible? How can we do that in the cheapest possible way? So we bought a machine just off the internet. So this red machine here, we removed the weight stack and then we put in our resistance subsystem. And you could see basically we just had to kind of jury rig the whole thing, put it in there where we could at least start doing it. You can still see even the controllers hooked onto the cables. And we started creating these little games. So this is Dwayne and my wife practicing. So we were all like crash test dummies, which we appreciate that. But we go out there and we say, okay, what does it feel like? Can we see the handles? How can I reach out and do it? So you can see we still have the controllers on those handles. And we had to put a whole bunch of tape all over everything because what we started to find is with the HTC Vive system, we started to get a lot of some type of interference where we would turn on our machine and the tracking would just be lost and we would have a gray screen. So the VR system wouldn't work anymore. And so we literally spent months putting tape all over the reflective machine, putting literally aluminum foil all over everything to try to block out interference. And it was months of not being able to figure out what was going on. So this is the other part of the entrepreneurial journey. You go home and you're just like, all right, I need a drink. It's ridiculous. Because the worst days are where you don't know what to do, where you just know that we don't know what to do. We don't even know how to solve this problem. But you trust in the process, you trust in the team, and you trust in the iteration and the learning, and you solve it. We eventually solved that this is a ferrite donut. We were getting interference, electromagnetic interference, from the system through the USB cord, which sends the tracking data. So when we wrap it around this ferrite donut, it takes out the interference. And once we put that in, it was solved. And we still, if you go out and see the machine out there, there's some of these back behind there. So a donut saved fitness company. So we started saying, okay, let's think about the dimensions of how this thing's going to work. And so we're doing that inside VR, creating things in a cheaper way to prototype them using virtual reality. And this was our first machine, this monstrosity. We called it the refrigerator because it became overly complicated. You know, we wanted something simple, but we wanted to make it so that users didn't have to move this stuff up and down. So there's all these different cable handles and points. So we kind of filled it all in. And you can see it was basically a refrigerator. The bench pad that came out, we realized that you need a bench pad or some kind to stabilize you when you're doing chest press or standing row, so you're not having to like lean over or when it starts to get really heavy. And it was just overly complicated and just kept breaking down, so we said that's not going to work. At the same time, we started figuring out how the game's going to work. So what type of game is it going to be? How are we going to get people to come back over and over versus play a game, do it a couple times, get bored of it, or go through all the levels? What are we going to do? So we just started making a bunch of games. And so this is kind of a funny little game where we were trying out some different type of high-intensity interval training, doing a lot of squat jumps and burpees and things like that, together with integrating with the machine. This was just more of the cardio test. Creating paper game prototypes. So a big thing you'll learn is the more you can create cheap prototypes before doing the expensive version, the better it is, and the faster you can iterate, which is the key word for a startup. Going through and figuring out how we're going to do weight progression, the math in the back end. But of course, with any new software, there was constant bugs. You know, almost every single time you would go to work out, something would pop up. So then you go home that day. Start figuring out the characters and the design. What are we going to do with that part of it? Because there's a whole bunch of that. Obviously, the brand. How's the branding going to work? That's another big thing for entrepreneurs. Is sometimes if you're an entrepreneur that loves engineering, you're a tech entrepreneur, you're a coder, you're a developer. You focus on the technology, which is a super important part. You forget about the brand and the marketing, which is equally important. Technologists hate to hear that, while brand developers hate to hear that the technology is equally as important. If you're going to create some new technology, you have to build a competitive moat, and it's shocking how important the brand is. People want to know your brand, your company, and believe in it, and not just jump to anything. So if we create this, if this becomes successful, we don't want somebody else to come out with just virtual reality gym and people think of it as equal in their mind. So the branding aspect, if that's not your strength, hire for that. Start figuring out how to 3D print these different things you can put on your arm because you can't hold controllers and hold the handles at the same time. So we were starting to iterate on some of those. You can see like the battery coming out and just putting all the sensors in there and creating our own designs. We used to joke that the hands were never going to be done, so I sent this to the team one day, like, man travels to 2,300, black box VR hands, still not ready, but close, you know, because every day we were almost on that edge of getting them done. So you go home that day. A lot of resveratrol during that year. Figuring out how we're going to track the back-end data and the progression, and then getting a little bit closer when it comes to the actual machine layout while not spending time and money on the things that don't matter, like some of the way it looks. Kind of a fun little thing is during this time, the show Billions reached out and said they wanted to feature the machine on the show. We said, well, how much? And they said they didn't want to charge us. They just wanted a machine because they wanted to create this cool like virtual reality gym in there. So we actually got a lot of really good airtime with our logo on there, which was kind of nice and fun for the team. So once we figured out kind of the basics, now it's time to move to MVP, your minimal viable product. And I know everybody that understands startups has heard about it, but it's very important to launch with the earliest version you can. Some people launch a site and a new product without even knowing what the product's going to be. They just figure out the basic idea. They put some Google search ads out there. They put a buy button. Once a person clicks it, they say, just kidding, this isn't available yet. But they got the data that there's actually a market. Because spending a lot of time and money on something that doesn't exist, a market that doesn't exist, is obviously a huge waste. So the earliest you can get there. For us, it's difficult because when you're creating a hardware device and something brand new, it takes a lot more time and iterations than with software. But of course, we were out there in conferences talking to customers constantly. So we decided to go all in. At this point, we said we're going to quit the gym forever. So our team, we like to work out. It's important to us. It's important to our lives. And we said, on this date, which at this point was two days away, we were not going to ever work out in a gym again. We're going to eat our own dog food, and we're going to use only this product, which created a lot of sense of urgency because it has to be ready by that day. And we would use it as a real customer would. If you're using it as a business person, you're not going to understand how the real customer is going to use it. There were so many times at bodybuilding.com, we would spend months creating this new interface, this new feature for our site. And we would launch it, everything looked great, and then a couple weeks later, I'd say, oh, I'm going to use it actually as a customer, because I am wondering, like, what is a good protein powder and that would work for what I'm thinking about right now. And then it wouldn't work the way I wanted it to. As looking at it as a customer made me look at the product in a completely different way. We started working on the business model, which different ways we can release this. Team testing and user testing. So we're user testing. It's very painful when you have a product that you know is not done and most of the features aren't there and it's ugly, to bring real people in, friends and family, and have them look at it without telling them too much so you can figure out how they interact with it and where the holes are. Working on the companion app, how people will then interact with it, schedule, see all the other game data inside their iPhone or Android. Building out 10 different arenas where people will play and move up the compulsion loops of the status of the arena levels. We did a study in New York University at Lehman College at Bronx, New York, we did virtual reality, we did black box versus dumbbells and barbells. And so that way we can have a published study, which will be published in about April in a journal pretty soon. Mainly because when you come to something new, you're going to have detractors. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to hold on to the old way of doing it. And we started to think, what are the things that they're going to say? And how can we have something to say back to that? So doing an actual university study was very helpful for us. Working out in the beta gym, that's me. No, that's not me. That's me after about a few more workouts. But just kind of get as many people in there working out and using it. Building the machines, working with some manufacturers, figuring out how to get as many of them built as possible, assembling them inside of our warehouse here in Boise. We had Def Leppard's Phil Collins come in or Colin come in and do a little workout the other day, which was kind of cool, and they were here. And that's why he's so ripped. 2.5 years later, after starting with Preston, we're very proud of what we've created. And you guys will get to try it out there in the other room. But it is an all-in-one resistance and cardio system where your body is the controller. And you get up to 120 pounds of resistance per arm, 240 pounds total, doing a full body exercises inside virtual reality, where we give you that real resistance delivered virtually, and we say you immerse and emerge. You immerse yourself into virtual reality and emerge something completely different. Artificial intelligence in the back end to progress you. So the goal was then to build awareness. So now we have this thing that we think is really good, and we got to start building awareness. So we went to CES and started getting the word out there, won a CES Innovation Award, and said, okay, that's another way to put a good date in. It's 156 days till CES. They're not going to change the date. So we said, we want to go to CES and show this to the world last year. And what's a great thing about this is when you create dates for your team, that's not just artificial as a boss, just saying, hey, we got to get this done in 2 weeks. Why? Because boss said. That's motivating in a certain way. But when you say, hey, we're about to show the world what we're doing, and we're going to take this to CES in 156 days, that creates a lot of urgency, and a lot of the team will come together to really push as hard as they can. So creating dates was always a very important thing to me, that were authentic dates, that were not just because I said so. So then we started testing out the booth, creating the booth concept, and once again, you'll see the main theme of this is iterating and testing. Instead of just thinking that we know what we're doing, we're gonna go out there, bring people in, and test here in Boise. And then we went to CES. This was the Today Show. They were one of the first ones to come in and try it. And we got a lot of media from the BBC, Mashable, NBC, Today Show, CNBC, just coming in and trying it out and getting the word out there about what we created. The more you can be public about what you created, the more people will come to you. That's another thing I hear all the time from people is, I have an idea, but sign this NDA. Don't tell anybody. I'm not going to tell anybody what my idea is, because then they're going to steal it. If your idea is that weak, that it can be stolen that quickly, then it's not a good idea. But the more public you are about your ideas, it's amazing. The serendipitous type of things that come to you all the time. People reaching out to you over the internet. People coming to you and showing you, here's a different way you can do things. And so the more public you can be about what you're doing, as long as you're working on it diligently with the right team, the more luck you're going to have. And we were lucky enough to be named Best Startup at CES 2018 out of over 600 startups, which gave us a pretty good amount of press, and a lot of people following us up with that. But I kind of say that's kind of like winning the Heisman in college football. It's like, that's great, but now you got to make it in the NFL. So then we went to IRSA, so we went to a different type of convention. This was IRSA, they do health club conventions, so we went out there and said, let's go have a different type of crowd and get their feedback, let them come try it. So we're building awareness, but we're also getting their feedback. And then it's time for commercial launch. The real learning begins now. So we're actually decided that we need to find a product market fit, a repeatable, scalable business model. So we have a product that we believe brings new value to the world. And we now need to figure out how to monetize that. Because if we have this fun little thing that nobody wants to use, then it's not going to get us anywhere. So finding that repeatable, scalable business model, finding potential partners to help us to scale, gathering user feedback, iterating on the hardware, game, and business model, testing, marketing, and sales. So that's another big part of it now. What are the marketing funnels going to look like? How are we going to build awareness? How are we going to actually create sales with something people have never tried before? And so it's all about testing and iterating. So our plan is we are actually launching a gym in San Francisco on Market Street. You can see the pointer down here at Fox Plaza, right across from Twitter headquarters. So literally look out our front doors, windows. There's Twitter right there, Uber, Square, Dolby. So we said we want to be in a place that we know it's going to be very expensive, but it's going to build a lot of awareness, because if we build one gym, that does nothing for us. We want to build hundreds of gyms where people will be able to use the machines, schedule it through the app, have a boutique gym business model where they pay a monthly fee for a Hero Access Pass, and then go 3 to 4 times per week, 30-minute workouts, gives you the full amount of volume per body part at the right intensities to get in shape. So it's a very expensive way to do it, but we want to take a big leap and see what we can do. So there's actually the Twitter sign. And most of our team is down there right now actually putting in the finishing touches, because we're planning to launch March 11th, just in a couple weeks. So the whole team is, once again, there's a big date coming up that we're going to have a soft launch. And we're going to release this to the world. And I'm either going to be very depressed, drinking a lot more. Yeah. And I feel very good about where we're at with our team. And I know for sure there are a lot of things that we are going to learn, things we don't know right now that we're going to learn and we're going to iterate on. So we go in there with that learning mindset, the iterating mindset, and we will have problems, we'll have successes, and we will learn from those things, and we will create something that the world has never seen right here in Boise, Idaho. So that's everything. You guys, looks like we have maybe a couple minutes for questions. If you guys want, there's a microphone right here. Or just go try it out. Oh, George. So, how do you guys think about pricing? You did a subscription model. How did you come to the price point when there was no category to directly align against to say? Right. So, when you create something brand new, there are competitors, and the competitors are the way that people are doing it today. And so what we said is, how are people solving this problem today, right? We feel like they're not solving it fully because of what we talked about, where people don't stick to their fitness programs. They get a Planet Fitness membership and they don't go, except for on pizza night, so that's a competitor, but doesn't really do what we want. They can go to a personal trainer and they can pay, thousands of dollars a month, in some places for personal trainers. Most people will go, like in San Francisco, to an Equinox or to a Core Power Yoga, Orange Theory Fitness. And we found that that business model seems to be really smart right now. The millennials, which we think this will mostly be attractive to, which by the way, the oldest millennials now are like 38, 39. So whenever I think millennials, I think 14-year-olds, But they're up there. They're older. They have money. They have families. They have fitness needs. So what are they doing? And Orange Theory Fitness grew from almost nothing to over 5 to 7 years to now $1 billion company, $1 billion in revenue throughout all of their franchises. And they just hit that last year and growing rapidly. So we looked at that and said, okay, that seems like a really good model. And it's kind of the basic idea. There's like classes, there's times that you go, and you kind of have an unlimited pass. And so we looked at the pricing models for how people are solving that right now and said, we think we have a premium product, but we don't want to price ourselves out where people won't try it. So in San Francisco, we're going to be $199 per month for an all-access pass, Hero Access Pass, which is actually a little bit cheaper than Equinox, Barry's Boot Camp. Those are like $249, $349, up to like $549 per month, which of course, in San Francisco, everybody makes $100 an hour to work at Starbucks, something like that. So we feel like that's obviously wouldn't apply to Boise, but we think an Orange Theory model, around $149 per month, with a membership subscription model, because that's the most powerful business model in my belief out there, because you're not just building a one-off sale. Every time you fill in at a customer, you're getting sales down the road, and you really work on retention and word of mouth, and you can continue to grow rapidly.
Do you have any path to changing from you have to go to the gym to your gym's at home?
Yeah, so one of the things we said is we would love to have it to be a home use product. In fact, as soon as we have an extra machine, I want to put one in my house for sure, So, but the problem is the machines right now cost about $20,000 each for us to make, so they're pretty expensive. Low scale hardware is not a good business from an economy of scale. So, and also we don't have the awareness out there. If we all of a sudden put a buy button on our site and people have never tried it, something so brand new, the likelihood of them buying that is very small. So another point of the plan is that the more we can get out there, be in your city, scale in a way that makes sense where people can afford to use it versus the $20,000 like to be able to buy it for your house. And once we can get the price down, build that awareness, we think that the home model, the Peloton model, could be very powerful for us. So, but we just look at that as a 2 to 5 year path. All right, I think I'll let you guys go. Most important thing is that you don't know what you don't know, and iterating and building MVPs and building prototypes and working with a team that has a passionate goal and alignment of the team of what you're trying to accomplish is the most powerful way to create a startup and use innovation at work. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Nick and the team, for creating such an amazing event. I'm excited to show you guys Black Box VR out in the Expo Hall. Thank you.